Would the 49ers please hire a freaking defensive coordinator soon? Yo, what's up? Welcome to Next Up, powered by BetUS. That's Los D. I'm Grant Cohn. There's, I guess, some news. Matt Barrows of the Athletic went on a podcast recently and was asked about the search for a new defensive coordinator. Here's what he said. Quote, "It's Robert Saleh or bust, really, because they haven't done much work with anybody else to this point. I've heard that they already told Saleh, quote, 'We will make you the highest paid defensive coordinator in all the land if you sign with us. So now it's just a matter of waiting for Saleh,' end quote." Apparently, the highest paid defensive coordinator in all the land currently is Vic Fangio, making about $4.5 million per season. I guess the Niners are offering Robert Saleh $5 million per season, which should mean that they'll get him if he doesn't become a head coach somewhere else. What do you think of this news?
I mean, that's consistent with what the 49ers do. It's a safe pick. It's a comfortable pick. They're not going to go outside the box. They're going to, go back to somebody that they know and feel comfortable with and knows their scheme, because that's what they do, is they just focus in on the few things that they can do and the people that will, enhance it or, deal with it. So not surprised at all that they're going in that route.
I mean, if they can get Robert Saleh, great. There is no salary cap on coaches, and to have one of the highest paid head coaches and the highest paid defensive coordinator, there's no rule against it. Kyle needs it. He fits the culture, the scheme, the philosophy. Of course, it means that there wouldn't be much of a change, but that's the Niners. My thing with this is, I think the world of Robert Saleh. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he kind of got screwed with the Jets. I don't know if he's a good head coach in the sense that who's his offensive coordinator going to be? He never really had a good one with the Jets. On the Niners, it's Kyle Shanahan. So if you look at it as he's the head coach and Kyle's the offensive coordinator, it kind of works. But as we can see, he's still on the radar for teams as a head coach. And it seems like if he came back and had one good year, kind of turned the Niners around, he'd be gone next year. And the Niners have they've had no consistency at the defensive coordinator spot since he left. They had D'Amico, who was so good, he left after 2 years, and then firing. Saleh's great, but even best case, he probably won't be here that long.
No, if the Niners defense gets back to, where they were and he does well, then he's going to be gone soon again. And we're just going to be back in that rotation cycle. And, the Niners like to be plan C and plan D. Like Saleh will be like, well, if this team doesn't hire me, this team doesn't hire me, I'll come with you guys. So yeah, it's just going to be a continuous cycle, and they're going to be back on coach defensive coordinator number 6, 7. You need stability at some point, and that's not good for the organization.
So let's talk about something else that Barrows said here. The Niners really haven't done any work on anyone else. They've shown a little interest on Jeff Ulbrich. There's a couple ways you could look at this. One, the Niners maybe got some type of verbal confirmation from Robert Saleh that he's going to take the job, and that he's just sort of doing these interviews as a courtesy to the other teams. And they know it, and this is basically a fait accompli. Or the Niners are being a little naive, and they're putting all their eggs in one guy's basket who could very well go Jacksonville, Dallas, the Raiders. They may not get him. And if he decides in 2, 3, 4 weeks that he's going to be the head coach somewhere else, or he gets that offer, the Niners could once again be choosing between Brandon Staley and God knows who. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like a temporary solution. It's never long-term. I would have liked them to go in a different direction with maybe, the assistant defensive coordinators or DB coaches for Kansas City. I think one of them was on their radar, but I read something where that specific person said some things against Kyle and his offense that were a little bit demeaning, and Kyle may take that personally, as we know he can be. So I would have liked to have seen them go outside the box for a younger, up and coming D coordinator than just a retread. So yeah, I could see it completely going that way again with another temporary solution to the problem. And at the end of the day, you can have the greatest defensive coordinator in here as ever, has been in the NFL, but you got to have talent. you have to have the talent to do it. And that's where the Niners need to focus on the draft and then free agency and start hitting instead of missing. And that's going to go hand in hand with whoever they bring in.
All right, I was at the barber shop this morning, and my barber he was like, "All right, so are they bringing back Kyle?" I was like, "Yeah, it looks like it. Seems like it." He's like, "You know what they should do? They should get rid of Kyle and hire Spagnuolo as their head coach." And I was sitting there, I was like, I haven't heard anyone say that. And I don't hate it. Like, Spagnuolo is a legit serious coach who, I mean, maybe a lot of Niner fans wouldn't be into it. It's not going to happen, but defensive coaches have been having a lot of success this year. He's coming from the best organization. He has rings because he beat the Niners. He'd be interesting. I actually, if you're going to replace Kyle with someone, why not replace him with someone who has his number?
Yeah, why not? And that's why last time we spoke, we mentioned Brian Flores kind of having his number, but then, things happen. Like now Brian Flores' stock is down a little bit because Minnesota got beat. It's so funny how the NFL just changes week to week. Like, oh, this guy or this coach or this player is at this level, and then they have a bad week or two, and then all of a sudden they're back down there. But then other guys have multiple games where they're bad and they're still considered at the higher level. So there's a hypocrisy in the NFL big time when it comes to that.
I got a quick little story. So last night, it's about nothing. Apropos. So last night, I went out to North Beach in San Francisco because my friend from high school owns a bar. It's on Grant and Union. It just opened. It used to be like Grant something. It was kind of a seedy dive bar, but he just got it and redid it. It's called April Jean. It's hella nice. And it's his birthday. So I went last night. And
ironically, it's on Grant Street.
Exactly. So anyway, I'm there with my friend Aaron and we're chatting. And this girl walks over to me and she says, "So are the Niners going to sign Purdy or what?" And I laugh. I don't know who she is. And I'm like, "I don't know. You tell me." She's like, "Look, I don't give a shit about the Niners and I don't know who you are. My friend over there told me to come over here and say that." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, nice to meet you." And she goes, "You're never going to guess what my last name is." I said, "Okay, what is it?" She says, "Levy." I'm looking at her. I'm like,
"Marv?
You're Marv Levy's granddaughter?" And she was Gabriella Levy. And her opening to me was, "Listen, I don't give a shit about the Niners and I don't care who you are." Nice to meet you.
What
I thought that was pretty cool. I met Marv Levy's granddaughter last night and she came up to me, but she didn't know who I was. Anyway, shout out to the Levys and Jews in general.
How ironic that a granddaughter of a multiple Super Bowl losing coach would come up to you and talk about things. Like, that could have been a real interesting discussion.
Well, I got nothing but respect for Marv Levy over there. I mean, anyway. Yeah, so that's my story. Okay, moving on. Speaking of Marv Levy, is the 49ers Super Bowl window still open? They believe it is. They think with a few, changes to their coaching staff and maybe a few tweaks to their roster and some better injury luck, they'll be right back there. What do you think?
I think their Super Bowl winning window is closed. They can be relevant, but I'll leave a caveat with that. There's a key to opening it up again. 2 keys. One, they have to have a monster draft. Like, I'm talking not like this last year that people say was a great draft. No, it was a pretty good draft this past year. I'm talking a 1986 type of draft where they just, maybe trade back. They get a lot of players. They get a lot of starters. They get quality players. That's key number 1. Key number 2, all that won't matter until Kyle changes his philosophies. It just does not matter. It's not about his X's and O's. It's about his philosophies. If he continues to do the things that a few of us beat him up for and everybody else looks the other way, then it's not going to happen. It just won't happen. You can't have these clock management issues. You can't not have a hurry up offense when you're behind. That's just ignorant. You can't have conservative when it's 4th and 1 and you keep kicking field goals. All the things that Kyle had. You can't have roster politics. You need to play the best players. Whether they're young veterans or whether older veterans, play the best players. So all these things have not gone away for 8 years, and they can have a great draft and they can bring in this DC or that DC. But if Kyle continues to be the way he is, it's not going to happen, in my humble opinion. They won't.
I think it's interesting. Like, there's two competing narratives with this team, and you'll hear it from different media members. I mean, I think most media members are looking at the Niners and saying, you know what? You can't overreact to one bad year. They had injuries. McCaffrey wasn't there. They were just in the Super Bowl. They went to 3 straight NFC championship games. Like, we have to give this team the benefit of the doubt just for those reasons. And I think a lot of other people look at them as like, yeah, that all checks out. But if you look at this team, that has all the hallmarks of a team that has peaked and is falling apart, that has a toxic culture. And I don't think they've really done anything to dispel that narrative at all. Like, you have to really give them the benefit of the doubt. But if you take that away and just look at what they've done the last 12 months, it's been horrifying. And I don't think that there really are any indications that they're going to turn it around, save Robert Saleh coming back and just infusing this team with all kind of optimism. But even then, it feels like turning back the clock to 2019. Hey, maybe we can recreate what we once had. Like, eventually you got to have some type of nod to the future. You got to get rid of Juszczyk. You got to get rid of Debo. You got to do something new, fresh and young. Yeah,
they have to, reinvest in themselves and self-analyze themselves. And I don't think they do that very often. They say they do, but they really don't. Because if you self-analyze yourself and saw the things that you did wrong or didn't do well, you would fix it. You keep talking about, like, okay, we're going to get a new special teams coordinator in here. Who cares? Why? You're not going to practice it. You never have. You brag that you haven't. So what difference does it make what coach you get in there? And here's the one big thing that none of us talk about. Niner fans, the media, everything, always focus on what the Niners are doing. They have blinders on. They're not taking into consideration that the competition for the Niners in the NFC, the Eagles, the Rams, the Lions, the Commanders, these are 4 teams that have proven guys in personnel that make good selections and good picks. You don't think they're not going to get better? They're already probably past the Niners now, and you think they're just going to stay still while the Niners all of a sudden redo this, redo that, get healthy, and they're going to just pass everybody? No. Those teams have good personnel people. They're going to probably draft well. They're going to make good free agent decisions. And quite frankly, they're younger and hungrier. So we can't just dismiss and focus on what the Niners are doing. We have to look at what the Niners competition is doing. And right now they're doing it better.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is the Niners look at their schedule. Oh, it's a weak schedule next year. And the division's weak. Well, you were 1-5 in the division this year. You had problems with Seattle. You lost twice to Arizona, who will be better next year. They have more cap space than the 49ers, and they don't have to spend it all on their own players. And then let's talk about the Rams. The Rams look way better than they did 2-3 months ago, and not because of their offense. We know that Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, really good trio of players. Cooper Kupp looks kind of washed, but their defense, my goodness, their D-line, from Jared Verse to Braden Fisk to Kobe Turner and Byron Young, 4 across the board. Problems. Yeah,
they're
and
young.
The Niners don't have anything like that. They have Nick Bosa and Journeyman. And Drake Jackson. A lot of deal.
And then they're them.
It's a big difference. How are the Niners gonna bridge that gap? Where's their D-line?
Yeah, these other teams, their core and their best players are younger guys, and the Niners' best players and core are older guys. So this whole talk about, we're going to get healthy or not. How? When, it's proven that older players get injured more. So you're going to keep the same core. You're going to keep going back to Juice. You're going to keep going back to Debo. You're going to keep having Brendel at center because you like them. That's the one phrase I can't stand that I hear at these press conferences and some of these other content creators talk about. Well, the Niners like this guy. They like that guy. Why? He's not that good. Why do they like him? Or they dislike somebody like J.P. Mason, like Cowing, like Jalen Graham won't see the field because for some reason they don't like them. I don't know why, but that goes back to my point. Play the best players.
I just want to look up real quick the defensive linemen the Niners have drafted the last few years, because the Rams got those 4 guys I'm talking about in the last 2 drafts. Verse and Fisk were this year, and Young and Turner were the year before. So you can put together a dominant defensive line in 2 years if you know what you're doing. And last year, the Niners drafted no defensive linemen. The year before that, they drafted Robert Beal and called it a day. The year before that, they drafted Drake Jackson and Kalia Davis. The year before that, they drafted no defensive linemen, none. Are you kidding? The year before that, they drafted Javon Kinlaw, and that was it. The year before that, they drafted Bosa. So since they drafted Bosa, the only defensive linemen they've drafted are Javon Kinlaw, Kalia Davis, Drake Jackson, Robert Beal. My God. Holy hell. That's awful.
That's a lot of swing and misses. And these other teams that I mentioned, Grant, they know who they each have their individuals that are going to be making the call. You know, the Eagles, it's Howie Roseman. The Rams, it's Les Steed. You know, the Commanders have Adam Peters. Who else? The Lions have Brad Holmes. So those organizations and teams know there's one person that's making the decision. The Niners, we don't know. We've been talking about this for years. We don't know who is picking draft players. Is it Lynch? Was it Peters? Is it Kyle? You know, Kyle has his name written all over a lot of these picks that have missed a lot. That's why I laugh when I hear people saying, well, Kyle built the roster. No, Kyle missed on a lot of his choices. The other people.
Tom, look at the defensive linemen they've drafted other than freaking Bosa. My God. And you look at the Eagles, their whole D-line of guys they drafted. The whole D-line.
Yep. And
the Rams too.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted Kyle out of the building. That's why I did not want to fire him. I'm a big proponent of trading him. I think the Bears would give up 2 first-round picks. I think other organizations would give up. Talent, to me, wins games. Coaches tweaks and helps things here and there. But I wanted Kyle not only out of the building from the coaching point of view, because I think that's a little bit overrated. I wanted his voice out of the building, because if it's just Lynch or whoever is in there, a better personnel, a better scouting person, I think they would draft better. But as long as Kyle is there with his power and his Julius Caesar tendencies, he's always going to have a voice, and there's going to be reaches and there's going to be misses if he's there.
Agree. Bay Area Baller's been a member for 40 months. He's the Bay Area Baller 18. Excuse me. Thank you, Bay Area Baller. That's a long ass time. Darius Billings says, if Purdy signs a multi-year contract, what does that mean? Will that mean Kyle's job will be secure for that duration? Not necessarily. Kaepernick signed a long-term contract with the Niners, and Harbaugh was gone a year later. So not necessarily. Good question, Darius. Dave Barclay says, gee, what did you like about Honora exactly? Strange. Oh, you saw it and didn't like it? I thought it was quite unique. I thought the main character, that lady, was a trip. Every scene she was in was pretty great. She was a good character, good actress. And the guy,
I've heard about that show. What channel is it on?
It's a movie. It came out this year. It was good. I liked it a lot, and I recommend it. He didn't like it. I thought the ending was quite poignant too. I thought there were parts where they were searching for the kid and it was really funny. But I thought it was actually a good character study. A good character study. Also saw another one with my dad recently called Hard Truths. I recommend it. It's a British movie, and nothing happens in the movie. There's no plot. Couldn't recommend it more.
I got a multiple choice question before you go on to the next topic, Grant, for you. This will be interesting. I want to hear the chat's view. I'm going to give you 4 things, and you tell me which one will Kyle do first. 4 things. Which one will Kyle do first? Will he fake a punt? Will he fake a field goal? Will he actually use a hurry-up offense? Or will he admit that he's wrong in a press conference? Which one of those will he do first? I'll repeat. Will he fake a field goal in a game? And I'm not talking an exhibition game, a real game. Will he fake a punt? Will he fake a field goal? Will he actually use a hurry-up offense? Or will he admit to being wrong? You could go none of the above.
You can immediately rule out admit to being wrong. That's out. Never gonna happen.
Okay.
That's out.
Process of elimination.
Yeah. So what was the third one? Hurry up. As with Brock Purdy at quarterback, not gonna happen. So that one's out. Wow. And then we're talking fake kicks, fake field goal,
or fake punt.
That's never gonna happen. They did fake one punt, and he didn't call for it. Wisnowski called it on his own and got the first down. This was 2 years ago, I want to say. So I want to say that one just because Mitch Wisnowski can take matters into his own hands.
The punter had to do it on his own. Yeah.
He had to do it on his own. Yeah.
Kyle gets no credit for doing that.
Zero credit. He even said like, I would,
So I brought up that question to just kind of point to, what we talk about a lot is just, the stubbornness and the not willing to change on philosophies and self-analyze yourself. Those are all risks. And the 49ers have become an organization. And since Kyle is like the face of the franchise, it's like they're following by his lead. Jed follows, John Lynch follows, everybody follows. And that's this: don't take risk, be cautious, be safe. And that's not how you win championships. Like, the most successful businessmen in the world take risk, and it should be that way in the sports world as well. So I asked that question because I figured it would be E, none of the above. But if you had to choose one, that's a good one. But the punter gets credit for it, not him.
To me, what's funny is like the only team that should be able to get away with changing nothing about their philosophy is a team like the Chiefs. That's won 2 Super Bowls in a row, and you're like, okay, we really don't want to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like for a team like that applies. And even the Chiefs are constantly churning their roster and bringing in new players, but ultimately they're allowed to keep things as uniform as possible. The Niners aren't that team. You haven't won anything. You haven't shown that your philosophy or mode of doing, modus operandi, your MO, whatever, works on that level. You've proven that you can be second place or fourth place with this, but not first place. So when the Chiefs come up short, they make big changes. They take it very seriously. They act like it's the worst thing that ever happened. And they will make sweeping changes to their philosophy, the kind of offense they want to be. I mean, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. The Niners, when they lose, are like, we got to stay the course here. We got to keep this team together. We can't overreact. The Chiefs do, and you don't. That's a big problem with these organizations. The Niners are a little delusional, and I think the media feeds into it. The media is constantly telling them how great they are, and they believe it.
And they do believe it, and they talk about it on those that have podcasts. They brag about how they've been the best team in football for 5 years. But I'm glad you mentioned Tyreek Hill. They won a Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill, and he made the play that changed Super Bowl 54 with that 3rd and 15. And the Chiefs had the balls to actually move off of him. Their fan base must have went crazy going, how the hell can you give up on Tyreek Hill, the most dynamic wide receiver?
And he was still great.
And he was still great. It wasn't like he was over the hill. He was in his prime. He was still great. They traded for extra picks. They hit on those picks. They were able to use the salary they would have had to pay him, to pay other guys. They upgraded their offensive line, got better there because they saw and they learned from the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, hey, we can have the best quarterback in the league, generational talent, but if he's not protected, it don't mean shit. So they adjusted, and that's after they won a Super Bowl. So, hey, that's why they are.
Yeah, the Chiefs learned that lesson 4 years ago or something. If we can't protect our quarterback, none of these weapons mean shit. They figured that out. And their weapons are like decidedly frumpy. Like no one's scared of any of their weapons. There's not one player they have where you're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do with 35-year-old Travis Kelce? Nope. And yet they lost 2 games this year and very well could win their 3rd straight Super Bowl.
And they have the best D coordinator possibly in the league, the best special teams coordinator in the league, and the best offensive play caller in the league. So their talent doesn't need to be like exactly top notch, but because their coaching is such at a high level on all 3 levels. And again, that goes back to Kyle and his philosophies. You can't, run a race and win it at 66.7%. And I say that because he does not prioritize special teams. And special teams has lost the Niners so many big games under his watch. Fix it. Self-analyze.
We're talking about his philosophies. I love how you started with that question about what's going to happen first. All right, here's another thing that really illustrates Kyle's philosophy. And to me, this is like one of the things that's most annoying about him because he's good, but he thinks he's better than he is. And he does these like cute little things that no one else would do that he thinks is like really cool. His overinvestment in the fullback position. Like, dude, this guy, Kyle Juszczyk, his cap number this year is $6.5 million. There's not There is only one offensive lineman on the team who is a cap number above that. It's Trent Williams. Every other guy makes less. How can you justify spending more on a fullback than a right tackle when your right tackle isn't good and he's on his second contract? More on a fullback than a center, and he's on his second or his third contract. Like, I understand Pooney making less because he's on his rookie deal, but you should be investing in offensive linemen before freaking fullbacks. Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
You use the right word. He wants to be cute. He wants to be different. You know, it's like, hey, look at me. Like, I'm doing what the rest of the league is not doing, and we're gonna win because of it. It's like, dude, check your ego. Do what's best for the team, not for Kyle Shanahan. And I think that's what a lot of people don't hold him accountable for, is that ego. I heard and read a story recently. I don't know if this is true. Maybe you know. He keeps cameras on all the other coaches' meetings so he can kind of like, you know, follow what's being said. Like, so nothing is secretive. Like, he knows what the offensive line coaches' meeting is doing. He's in the defensive coaches' meetings. He's in the running back rooms meeting. Wow, if that's true, like, that is a power-hungry, egotistical person, and I don't know why he's not called out for that. It's about trust when you have an organization.
My issue with Kyle is like, I mean, I feel like most coaches are probably power hungry and egotistical. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest. I think Robert Saleh, even though he's very well polished, is probably power hungry and egotistical. I mean, I probably am to a degree. I think a lot of people are, but like, what gets me about him is I think it's the lack of self-esteem, if I can kind of be an amateur psychologist here, because I think if you have a big ego and a healthy self-esteem, you can take criticism. You can say, look, I think the world of myself. I think I'm that good. I really do. I believe I'm the best. But I also, if you say I messed this up, I can think about it and be like, yeah, I did. And I still think I'm the best, but I'll take the heat for this. If you have a fragile self-esteem, then you can't take that criticism. You get angry when people try to, what are you talking about? I'm the best. Like, that's a whole different thing. And that's something that I can't, it's not that I don't respect it. It's almost like, ooh, that's an impediment. And that's going to keep getting in your way and the team's way. And it's like, I don't know that you can necessarily change that fundamental part of your personality. It's who you are.
And I know Jed can't say nothing to him because Jed is just this, you know, just a feeble. He's not going to say, he's not Eddie. He's not going to go up and tell Kyle about coaching. But John Lynch is a Hall of Famer. I can't believe behind closed doors, John Lynch is not talking to him about all these things that we talk about, saying, Kyle, like, we need to really look at this and do something about it. I would think Kyle would respect him. I don't care if you hire John Lynch. If I'm talking to Kyle, I don't care if you were the one to pick and hire John. Like, he's not beneath you. He has a longer resume and better credentials than you, so you should maybe listen to him. Or how about Bobby Turner, who's been doing it 20 years longer than you have? Like, who does Kyle answer to and listen to? I feel if they bring Saleh, and we started with that, Grant, if they bring him back, that's just another yes man in the group. You know, like, I like presidents that they have.
Kyle's self-esteem can't take criticism. It's not his ego. It's his self-esteem.
You have to be able to have people in the room that are going to tell you, no, you're wrong there. You can't have everybody.
You have to have the self-esteem to be able to hear that and say, okay, I hear you. I could be wrong. Yep. I could be wrong and still have confidence in myself in this operation. But once you confront him with you did something wrong, he's like, he like goes haywire. We talk, does not compute. Like, no, man, you're not infallible. You make mistakes, and it would make you seem so much more human to be like, you know what, this is an area. This is a moment. And don't be vague about it. Like, of course, everything is my responsibility. Like, no. Say something specific the way you do about all your players. You don't pull punches with your players. When you talk about, when someone says, what do you think of Brock today? Well, you know, by no means was he perfect. Of course, he'd like those interceptions back. And on that interception, you know, he tried to layer it, but he didn't see it. It's like, you'll break it all down for people. Just keeping it real. If you would do that with yourself, people would like you so much more. You'd have so many more people on your side. You wouldn't be as polarizing as you are.
I feel like the media and everybody surrounding Kyle should use reverse psychology on him. Maybe that'll work. So you know how like people like, you know what, you should use JP Mason when CMC comes back, and he hears that and he's like, no, screw you. I'm going to do the opposite.
Don't use JP Mason.
Go the opposite. Yeah.
Oh,
use CMC all the time. Please do that. And then he'll might factor in whoever the backup running back is. Jake Benrell is like an all-star. Please don't even consider. Keep him. Yeah. Give him an extension.
You joke, but there's something to this. Like his self-esteem will not let someone else tell him what to do. He needs to be the person who had the idea and made the decision, even if it's a bad one. Because God forbid Los D said it first. He's like, well, I don't want it to be seen that I was taking Los D's advice. God forbid it was good advice. Meanwhile, Andy Reid has such high self-esteem that he can be walking around the facility, bump into the freaking janitor, and the janitor says, hey, Andy, I wrote this play down on a piece of paper. What do you think? And he's like, damn it, it's good. I like it. I should have thought of it. I'm using it. Thank you very much. I mean, that's what you want in a leader.
Yep. When the Warriors were down 2-1 in the finals.
I know what you're going to say.
You know where I'm going to go.
Hell yeah.
And there was a freaking intern. He wasn't even getting a
video intern. I forget his name.
Yeah. He wasn't even getting a paycheck from the organization. Came up with an idea of putting Iguodala in the starting lineup, going small, and being fast.
That changed the whole dynasty. It created the dynasty.
Changed the whole series. And Steve Kerr, being the type of, forget about coach, just human being that he is, he could have taken credit and said, oh, this is my change. And everybody would have ran with it. But he gave credit to this intern, who I forget his name as well. That's humbleness, and that's being open-minded. And unless Kyle changes to being something like that, he'll never be Steve Kerr, or even close to that, and self-analyze himself, then it's just not going to happen. The window
and Steve Kerr is so smart and savvy that he understood he would look better by saying my intern had the idea and I took it because I was open-minded than saying it was my idea. Saying it's my idea makes him seem like a genius. But to say it was some kid's idea,
right, and
you went with it, that just makes you seem like you have wisdom.
Yep.
Right? The first one is like, okay, you're clever, you're smart. But the second one is like, man, I'm wise enough to know what I don't know. And I'm wise enough to understand a good idea when it comes across, and I'm humble enough to give it proper attribution. I mean, those are qualities you want from a leader. And Kyle, for all of his good qualities, they mostly fall under the umbrella of offensive coordinator, play caller. These are all more intangible stuff that leaders have. Now let's talk about Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, as an offensive coordinator. A lot of people say, look, he's got some growing to do as a head coach, even though he's been one for 2 presidential terms. He's got some growing to do as a head coach, but as a play caller, as a play designer, as an offensive coordinator, he's the best or one of them.
Yep.
Do you agree?
I don't. I watch pretty much all the big name content creators post games after games are over, and all of them, even the pro Shanahan, I'm not going to name them, but we know who they are. Even the pro Shanny disciples, they complain about his play calling on not even on only losses. I'll give you an example. They beat Dallas, but there was a play where Dallas was starting to come back in the fourth quarter, and I think the Niners were just up 7. They were up 1 score. They get 9 yards on first down. On second one, it's like, again, clock management. Kyle's got to understand the clock is your friend when you're ahead, and it's your enemy when you're behind.
Mm-hmm.
He throws on second down when it's 2nd and 1. You run, you get the first down, the clock keeps going, better chance you win. He drops back to pass, Dallas blitzes, and the linebacker lights Purdy up. How he held onto the ball, I have no idea. But if he fumbles there and Dallas gets it and goes and scores, the coach and that stupid decision, which he has done for 8 years when he has a lead that nobody checks him and nobody confronts him on, of throwing when you have a lead, he continues to do it, is a perfect example of he's not a great play caller.
Can I just say that Dallas game, like they were up so big on Dallas. I'm going back through they were up so big. I take notes during games. They were up, what was it, 30 to 17 late. And I just got up from my seat and walked down like to the elevator. It's like, I want to be in position. This game is freaking over. I want to be ready to do my instant reaction as soon as the final whistle goes. Boom. And I'm going down there and it's like 3 minutes left in the game. And I'm watching him like, oh my God, Purdy just almost got his head taken off. Oh, Purdy almost just fumbled. And Mike Silver standing next to me, we looked at each other like, is this happening? Is this really happening right now? And we both had to like hold our breath and wonder while everyone at the stadium did. It was so bizarre. We don't think about that one because right afterward, Nick Bosa did his little hat thing and it overshadowed everything. But that was almost one of the most ridiculous collapses. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And Seattle and Arizona and the Rams were collapses. I mean, it's just his history. It's his pattern. You know, he's got what, a 37% winning percentage in one score games. I mean, all this evidence is just piling up. And again, goes back to self-analyzing. Like, why do you keep doing the same thing over and over wrong? Like, why can't you change that? So I think his play calling is a little bit overrated. I mean, let's look at his running game. Okay, his running game is outside zone. Great. Okay, so in between the 20s, your outside zone does really well. But when it gets closer to the goal line, you can't run. When it's 3rd and 1, you can't run because, you know, the lines are all bunched up and everybody's shooting gaps. And your offensive linemen, which he likes smaller guys that are mobile, get pushed back and they can't get short yardage, which forces them to always have to throw on 2nd and 2 and 3rd and 2. And you have negative plays when you throw the ball. Grant, you know this. When you pass the ball, more chances of an offensive holding, more chances of a sack, more chances of throwing over the middle, which they love to do, and tip balls and interceptions. Kyle's teams, even his great teams with the Niners, turn the ball over a lot, and they're pretty heavily penalized. And they have to overcome all these things just to win a game, on top of not emphasizing special teams. So I think his play calling is good, but when I hear people say, oh, he's a great play caller, then why are you complaining about it after every post-game show and not just losses? Think about that. I think it's a little bit overrated when it's all said and done. His passing game is like 70% over the middle. Like, where's the creativity?
That's all the same big route off play action over and over and over again.
Where's the creativity? His running game is outside zone, right? He doesn't run any draws. He doesn't run any trap plays. He doesn't run any sweeps. He barely throws any screens to the running back. So, I mean, to me, great play calling is, boy, your playbook is huge. I've seen a lot of different things. Ben Johnson, for example. I haven't seen the Niners do a hook and lateral ever under Kyle.
Yeah.
Much less in the 3rd or 4th quarter when you put a game away. So I think, what is the definition of great play calling? To me, it's a variety of different kind of plays and doing things that the other team isn't expecting. Kyle's playbook is very, very predictable. So is that a great play caller?
That way for sure. And I think like one thing we've seen, you mentioned like his awful record in 1-score games, in close games. He's below 40% winning percentage, which is just ridiculous. And it's like, we've seen that he does a good job when his team is healthy in the first half. And his dad was the same way. If we remember the Niners' last Super Bowl victory, what happened? Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. They jumped all over the Chargers. They were up 28-10 at halftime. And then, boom, they just cruise to victory. It's how the Shanahans win. They jump on you early. They cruise to victory with a 2-score lead, and the game's on tilt, and they've lapped you. But if you can just stay in the game, now Kyle Shanahan in the 4th quarter has to be a coach. He has to be an actual play caller. It's not about your scheme. It's not about your script anymore, which you could have worked on with your dad or the whole offense, the whole staff. It could have been a collaborative effort. But in the 4th quarter, down 4, up 4, whatever, that's you. That is you calling plays, being a coach. And we've seen he's just not good at it. He's not good at it. No.
Kyle reminds me a little bit of a old coach named Buddy Ryan. Buddy Ryan was a defensive coordinator for the Bears. He had the 46 defense. That was one of the best defenses, if not the best defense of all time. And that defense was hard to scheme against. But after about year 4 or 5, teams started to figure it out. And he never adjusted. And when he became a head coach of the Eagles, he was clearly over in his head, because he was strictly a defensive coordinator that had a great, defense that worked for a few years and that it didn't. And when the team and league started figuring him out, he didn't know how to counter adjust. So it remains to be seen. Again, is Kyle going to counter adjust, or is he going to just think, nope, my way is always going to win? And if he stays that way, I don't think it's going to work.
What I also think is kind of interesting is like when Kyle and Brock started working together, they were blowing teams out. And it looked like, oh man, he's found his quarterback for the long term. This combination, they're just deadly. But it seems like maybe Christian McCaffrey was a big reason that they were blowing teams out, and maybe IU too. But once you took those two guys out of the mix, now the Niners were in close game after close game, and they lost all but one of them this year. And it's like, well, is it because Kyle stinks in close games, or is it because Brock stinks in close games, or do they both stink in close games? And are they kind of like a bad match for that reason? I mean, when McCaffrey's out there and they have the Avengers, it seems like it works. But otherwise, if they're close, and even with the Avengers in the Super Bowl, when it was close, it was like, Jimmy was better than this.
Yeah. I mean, does any, even the most biggest pro Shanahan fan there is out there, do you really feel comfortable when games are close? I mean, I personally don't. Like, I almost, and I hate to feel this way because, it's one thing, like, we're both, critical of Kyle. It's harder for me to be critical because I'm actually a fan of the 49ers and have been for over 4 decades. So it's not easy to say these things, but I'm going to call it as it is. I'm not a homer, and I'm going to have constructive criticism when I see things that are wrong. So, that's not a good combination. If your quarterback doesn't have, a clutch gene and your coach doesn't have a clutch gene, that's not good. As long as you're blowing teams out, you're good to go. You'll be winning plenty of games. And who cares if they have a soft schedule next year? Great. You're going to be 12-5, and then you're going to get to the playoffs, play a real team, and get smoked. So is that what 49er fans want? You want to be relevant and just make the playoffs, or you actually want to win Super Bowls again, which was my generation's. That was our expectations. So
to me, like look at the Steelers. Give Mike Tomlin credit for never having losing seasons, but they're going nowhere. They've been going nowhere. He's been there for almost 20 years. I think it's probably time to get a new voice in there, a new direction. Like, to me, it's pretty obvious. And you don't want the Niners to sort of fall into that level of complacency. Like, we're good enough. No one's really criticizing us. Let's just keep trucking along and patting ourselves in the back and saying we have stability. Like, no, win a Super Bowl. Do something drastic. The Eagles, I respect the Eagles. They constantly have their head coach on the hot seat. They will fire a guy 2 years after winning the Super Bowl. Like, sorry, man, it's not all about you, and you got to keep this going. And if you can't, then we don't really care what you did 3 years ago. Goodbye.
East Coast mentality, a whole different beast. They hold people accountable over there.
I kind of like it.
Grant, I love it. I've been to the East Coast many times, and it's a whole different experience when you go to games out there. But when Jed said last year that they were content and happy to just get to the NFC Championship game, wasn't that a red flag for you and for everybody else? Like, that basically said, as long as we're printing money and the suites are filled and I get a playoff game or two, hey, the York family's good to go. That did not strike me as I want to win the Super Bowl. Because he said it. You made a great point. He said it a decade ago. We have to be accountable. I have to be accountable if we're not winning championships. And then he changed his tune. He changed his tune a little bit. So which is it? Like, we get lied to. We get lied to a lot by this regime. A lot.
Let's go back and look at what happened. So the Niners got Harbaugh, and they ran him out of town because he didn't win a Super Bowl, which was kind of following what we're saying, like, have some standards. Fine. He wasn't going to get it done. Maybe he wasn't. You go out and you blow the next 2 hires. And not only are you bad, but you're irrelevant. Yeah. No one's coming to your games. No one's talking about you on YouTube or locally or nationally. Like, the Warriors passed him locally. And that had never happened ever in the history of the Bay Area. The Warriors were more important than the freaking and the Giants were too. Like, they were becoming boring and irrelevant. And then Kyle comes, and no, he hasn't brought a Super Bowl, but he's made them extremely relevant. I mean, everyone's talking about the 49ers, and even when they're not in the playoffs, everyone's talking about the 49ers. And I think for York, that means a lot. I don't know, maybe his mom has higher standards or something, but for Jed, I think he just likes being discussed.
Yeah, I think they've lowered the bar. I don't think it's Super Bowls or bust anymore whatsoever. It's making money, and they like being relevant, at least in Jed's mind. And it's proof in the pudding. Like, he does not hold Kyle accountable. And we're not necessarily saying it about trading or firing him, but just sitting him down and telling him, you can't do it this way anymore. Either you have to change or you have to go. And I don't think that conversation has ever taken place.
I want to give Denise some credit. I feel like Jed probably doesn't have a backbone anymore, but we don't know about her. I think she kind of let Jed run the team. It's been a long time. And all I know is that Kyle had to fire 2 coordinators. That's drastic. I think what the Niners owners decided was like, look, instead of firing Kyle because he had a down season after losing a Super Bowl, let's look at what the Eagles did. Sirianni had a down season after losing the Super Bowl. Not as bad, but he lost 6 of his last 7, and it like the bottom fell out. Kind of like the Niners. Bottom fell out, lost 7 in the last 8. They didn't fire Sirianni, but they made him fire all of his coordinators, have a full reset, and he was pretty clearly on the hot seat entering the season. They bounced back. So I could see the owners of the Niners being like, all right, well, let's give Kyle a similar opportunity to do what Sirianni did, make big changes. Because like once you fire all the coordinators, I think it's pretty clear. Like the next guy's the head coach. There's no one else. You fired everyone. The next one is the head coach. So we're giving you one more year. Make it work. Get the best defensive coordinator. Get the best special. We'll pay for it. The Eagles went and got Vic Fangio. Like, we will freaking pay for it. I don't want this to be an excuse. And now you got to make this work. It worked for Sirianni, although, yeah, he won a playoff game last week. If Kyle comes back next year and goes 14-3 or whatever and wins a playoff game, I think he's fine. But if he comes back next year after firing the coordinators and goes 11-6, I don't care. Whatever, 10-7, 12-5, goes to the playoffs, loses first round in the wild card round. I don't know. I don't know what Denise would do. Come on, Denise.
Yeah, the Eagles got Fangio and they got Kellen Moore, and Kyle got Sorensen and Staley.
Oh.
Checkmate.
Oh.
Checkmate.
Okay, so don't do that ever again. Go get Robert Saleh and the best special teams coordinator, not Sorensen, the best special teams coordinator you can freaking find. Fossil. He's available.
Fossil would be great.
He's excellent.
I would bet my mortgage that it's going to be Sorensen at special teams.
Right, because Sorensen wouldn't ask Kyle to like run a fake punt or anything like that. Like Fossil used to do that all the time, right? He would have his punter like he could throw. Johnny Hecker, am I wrong? Johnny Hecker could throw anyway with the Rams.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that discussion on the sideline? Fossil going up. Hey, I'd like to run a fake punt here, Kyle. What do you think? And Kyle's just his facial expression and looking at him like, nah.
He wouldn't even answer. I'm just like, what?
Like what? I don't do that. Are you kidding?
We don't do that. We don't even.
Like some of the best coaches in the history of football have done things like that. Parcells did it against the Niners to kind of turn that game in the 90 NFC Championship game. Sean Payton did an onside kick to start the second half in the Super Bowl. Ballsy coaches.
True.
The Eagles
coach. A fake punt, I believe, in the wild card playoff game that extended the drive. It worked. And he lost, but I want to tell you something real quick. So last week, of the season, like I want to say it was Thursday practice. I'm not there watching. And before the game, I predict the Niners will do a fake punt in this game. Of course, they didn't. The freaking Cardinals did. But the reason I said that is because they were practicing fake punts and I can't report that. Now it's in the past. I'm reporting. They were practicing fake punts. And I'm thinking, I've never ever seen them practice any type of a fake trick play on special teams. They're actually doing it. Wow, maybe they'll call one in a game that doesn't count. Nope, didn't call it. And when they were practicing it, they had all kind of different ones, like one where it'd be a direct snap to someone or a handoff to someone. But they had one where Pat I always forgot his name. I sat next to him on a plane. Pat O'Connell gets the ball and instead of punting, throws a pass over the middle. And so he practices it and gets intercepted. I'm like, yeah, don't call that one, please. And they didn't. So got to give Kyle credit.
Pete Carroll also has done some special teams creativity in playoff games. I think they were playing the Packers and they were down 16-0 and they could not move the ball on offense. And they did a fake field goal and got a touchdown. That crowd in Seattle went nuts. But it's things like that you have to do outside the box because, again, we talk about Kyle, that he's great. He's Mike Tyson. When he's knocking fools out in the first 2, 3, 4 rounds, he's dominant. But when Mike actually has to have a fight and he has to throw with Holyfield, for a duration of the fight and it gets a little bit tight, what happens with Kyle? Kyle's got to learn to be able to adjust when he's behind because he's not going to be ahead all the time.
And Kyle doesn't understand about like momentum and emotion. Like, yes, you want to call those plays because they change momentum and flip a game and give your team a spark. And like those concepts don't mean anything to him. It's all for him, X's and O's. Well, if it's cover 3, then I got to call this. I mean, no, dude, you can actually flip the game on special teams.
He's a glorified offensive coordinator. There's a lot of other job responsibilities that come with the head coach. And quite frankly, he's average to below average in most of them. And that's just the honest truth from observation. Now, can he change? I don't know. That's what we're hoping and praying that he does. But if he doesn't,
no, he can't change. No,
it's going to be more of the same things. And we're going to be talking about this after games
has he ever changed?
Not in 8 years. So why would he change this next year? Why?
I want to come back to like the thing about self-esteem. I think people who have very low self-esteem, it's sad. It's sad. And I'm not like trying to put, it's often something from childhood. And I think to get over that and actually build like good self-esteem in your 40s, it's hard to do. You got to go to therapy diligently. And even then it's a slow process. And you got to be like really willing to like sort of open up the vein and be honest in therapy. And like, he can't take criticism. Can't look at himself like that. So again, this is a guy to me who's been exactly the same since he entered the league 15 years ago and will essentially be exactly the same 15 years from now when he's still in the league. And that's my problem. That's my problem.
I don't know Kyle personally, but I will just take a bet here and my gut tells me that at home in his personal life, I think he's a very open-minded, very, great family man. I don't think he's egotistical. I don't think he tells, his family, hey, we're going here, we're doing this, we're doing that. But somehow, some way, when he goes on the job and he becomes a coach and he becomes the D coordinator and he has to, have his hands tied in every little, and now I'm the GM, I'm going to make this call. Oh, we like this defensive lineman, he'll make a difference. No, I like this wide receiver, and he gets his way. I don't know. I just think that his personal life and how he is as a coach is different. I can't see him being this way in his personal life. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Something changes when he's on the job, and he's got to. He has to.
I get the feeling that he can't take criticism in any form from anyone.
That doesn't. It comes
more
with the job.
common than you think, dude. It's more common than you think. How many people do you know could take criticism in stride? It's hard. It's hard.
No,
it takes a really good self-image to be able to do it, and probably means parents who told you that you were special and they loved you when you were really young. I mean, it's like, honestly, it's stuff like that. And when people can't take it, I feel bad for them. It's hard. It's a skill.
But how could he not?
He doesn't have.
He's the son of a head coach. Don't you think he would have been like prepared? Like, hey, son, like being a head coach, you're going to get all the scrutiny.
What if his dad didn't tell him that he was special when he was a kid? What if his dad was withholding? A lot of people are. What if Kyle Shanahan got into coaching to get his dad's approval, and he hasn't gotten it yet? I mean, that's like, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but like that's textbook, right? Textbook. Yeah. And a lot of time with coaches, their family is their team. They're at the facility from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m, 6 months of the year. You know what I mean? They're not even there. They're late for Thanksgiving. They're not there on Christmas. I mean, just saying. Maybe.
There's a lot of dynamics there, but yeah.
There's a lot of dynamics. I don't know. I wasn't there. Let's get into BetUS, something we definitely can talk about the dynamics for. This entire show is powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. These are the betting lines for this weekend's game. We got some big lines. 9.5-point favorites, Chiefs over the Texans. Do you like the Chiefs to just blow the doors off of D'Amico?
No, I like the Texans to keep in that range. Kansas City doesn't score a lot, so I can't see them blowing out. And Houston's got a good defense, so I see them covering that 9.5. I don't think they'll win, but I see like a 27-20 game, something like that.
Okay, Commanders Lions. Lions -10. -10. Wow.
God, I like the Lions. I think I'm being a hypocrite off what I just said, but Detroit has a much better offense than Kansas City. I think Detroit's going to blow them out.
Yeah, well, Washington. I think Washington needs a better running back for sure. Philly -6 over the Rams in the snow.
Like the Rams.
Interesting.
I do like the Rams.
They have the better quarterback for sure.
And
their defense is good.
And Barkley went absolutely crazy on them in the regular season, and they're going to shore that up, and they're going to make some adjustments. They have the better head coach in McVay, so they're going to make adjustments. They're not going to let Barkley beat them, and I don't think Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles might pull it out, but I think the Rams cover that spread.
Okay. Ravens, Bills, Pick'em in Buffalo.
Best game of the weekend. This one is so hard, and I like both. I want both quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. I'm leaning toward Buffalo. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm leaning toward Baltimore a little bit just because they have Derrick Henry and the monster running game. But I that one's a pick 'em, really. Buffalo is a hard place to win.
And well, it'll be interesting. Those are our Bet US picks. Let's go through our super chats real quick. HR has been a member for 27 months. Thank you. Official BNM Music 88 says Los is looking like Ryan in a different font.
Yeah. We shop at the same beanie spot.
Hell yeah. Dan says Steve Kerr recently said Dub's failures are on him as a head coach. He needs to do better. You think Kyle would take a cue from a guy with 9 rings? No. It's not his fault. All day, every day. Kim says Niners are a part of the easy schedule for teams. Oh, that's true. Oh, we got the Niners on our schedule this year. Bobo0383 says might be a little tinfoil hat, but is there as much incentive for Jed to make the playoffs next season with the Super Bowl in Levi's Stadium next year? Oh, like he gets paid one way or another?
Yep.
HR says Los D is spitting. City Bert says Sirianni on the hot seat. Having a Super Bowl appearance in 2 10-win seasons is wild. It's more the expectation of the front office. Every front office has different standards. Well put.
Very well put.
I agree with that. And it's like the Eagles have much more confidence. Like, yeah, you're having success, but we were successful before you, and we will have success after you. Where the Niners are like, Kyle, thank you so much for saving us. We had a really tough couple of years there, and we were really embarrassed after the Harbaugh thing. And can you just give us credibility, please?
What is it, Grant, about the East Coast that's just like the fans are tougher on the teams and the media asks tough questions? I mean, other than you and to a degree, Larry, I don't see anybody in our media really asking the tough questions. But on the East Coast, you would fit right in because, I mean, you ask the questions that the fans want to hear. Like, I don't give a shit what color Kyle's going to wear today at the game or what hat he's going to wear. These are the type of, like, I don't give a S type of questions that are asked about. I don't know what it is about the East Coast that they just hold people more accountable than the West Coast. I've never understood it.
Me neither. All day, every day. Kim says Tyson was a champ and still iconic. Kyle is Kyle. Thank you for correcting that one. Official BNA Music 88 says if D'Amico beats Reed in the playoffs for Kyle, Grant, you better cook. You already know.
Oh yeah,
you already know.
It's coming.
Don't expect that to happen, but I guess it could.
Don't be surprised if you see, some trickery by the Texans. They're not the better team, and when you're not the better team, you got to do what you got to do to win. If that means fake a field goal, fake a punt, do something, trick play, do it.
Fake something. All right, Los, great show. Thank you, everyone, for watching. HR at the buzzer says paying Brock now is like buying an $85,000 car before you buy a house. E40.
That's a good analogy.
It's a good point. It's a lot of money for a car, too.
That's a lot. Yeah, 50, 60 grand will do you nice.
Yeah, I mean, any more than that, and that's a lot, but any more than that, it's like, how do you go drive it anywhere, park it anywhere, leave it alone, and actually enjoy your day? I'd be so stressed and come back.
If you are stuck in traffic in the Bay Area, which is often, you might as well be in something nice, though. Spend a lot of time.
I just want to say, though, that this year I went full on Amtrak on my commute to work, Oakland to Santa Clara. Changed my life. I loved it. And then I saw some tweets saying that trains are the most romantic form of transportation, and it had like 300,000 likes. I was like, no. I said that first. You get to sit there and like read a book and look out the window and pretend you're in France or something. It's so refined.
Were you recognized on Amtrak?
Hell no. Absolutely not.
Really?
Gotta love that.
Interesting.
But Marv Levy's granddaughter, though.
There you go.
Our conversation kind of petered out, and then she walked away. She was like, well, have a good one. And I was like, yeah. Sorry. Maybe if your grandfather had actually won one, get out of here. You know? Sorry.
What was her first name? Gabriella?
Gabriella Levy.
It's a pretty name.
Pretty freaking funny. I just think that was an all-time opener. Like, look, after I said, what do you think? She said, look, I don't give a shit about the Niners. And I don't care who you are. It's like, okay.
Blunt and straight to the point.
You got my attention.
You gotta love it.
You got my attention. Anyway, yeah, I'm from Oakland. I went to Bishop O'Dowd. What's it to you, HR? Who wanted to know, Harris? Yeah,
Bishop
Jesus.
Bishop O'Dowd.
Frank could do a hip-hop show about East Bay music. All right, maybe me and Ryan will do that one of these days. Although Ryan only listens to gospel music now. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, like
Ryan's
that.
too old. He's like mature and shit. He listens to like positive stuff to his kids.
You talking
I
Hensley?
don't. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Because he like, he had that phase in his life. He's like all positive now. He's like, don't push me because I've been there. And I'm like, yeah, I know, Ryan. Me too. I'm a tough guy too.
He's a perfect example. We're talking about Kyle in his 40s that have changed. Hey, if Hensley can do it and a lot of other people can do it and take a look at themselves and change their lives, you can't tell me Kyle can't do it. That's BS. Anybody
He
can.
can't. Hensley can, though. Hensley's an inspiration. And they're the same age.
Yep.
Ryan G. Hensley has 100 times more wisdom in life wisdom, than Kyle Shanahan. And I'm not even joking. Not even close.
Oh, fact.
If I had a question about anything other than X's and O's, I will go to Ryan before Kyle. Anything in life. If I wanted to know how to create space and get someone open against cover 3, I might go to Kyle on that one. Maybe.
Remember Kyle only follows, what was it? Hip hop something on social media.
Yeah, like you don't even his taste in rap is basic. Like, ugh. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
You got to be more
well-rounded area for 8 years and you can't name one Bay Area rapper. Like, that's on you. Every time we had practice, you're playing Lil Baby and Atlanta guys. Like, you haven't coached in Atlanta for 9 years. Come on.
Yeah, Kyle thinks the NWA is some wrestling organization. No, that's the NWA. Yeah, he needs to broaden his horizons, man.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It was even funny. He was like, yeah, Nick Bosa gave me a book to read. I was like, yeah, even your 20-year-old players are like, hey, Kyle, you probably might want to like expand your interests. Try this.
Yeah. Stop trying to be young like us, dude. Like go to a symphony or something. Like,
seriously, man, go to the opera. It's nice. Los, good stuff.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Take care, everyone.